Hello, you are watching a recorded version of a workshop, How to Write an Abstract, developed and presented by Rachel Karaskowitz from the Honors College. Our agenda for today is a brief introduction to abstracts, followed by going over the abstract components, analyzing some sample abstracts, looking at the 4 C's of abstract writing, and finally, having some suggestions and time to start your own abstract. Let's get going. What is an abstract? It's a brief summary of your research. It is less than 300 words. It will be complete and concise, which definitely sounds oxymoronic, but let's keep going. And usually you'll write it last. So the purpose of the abstract is just to give readers a brief highlight of the key points of your paper or poster. People who read these are editors, reviewers, indexers. These are people who work for the library and figure out keywords so that your published work can show up in a search. Other conference attendees. Okay, abstract components. Regardless of the discipline, an abstract will include the following information in this particular order. First, outline the context or the purpose of the project. What is the area of study? You just want to orientate your reader. Next, you will talk about the research problem or the goal of your research. Followed by that would be the methods that you will use to basically answer your research question or to address your research problem. Findings or conclusions have you reached? Or if your research is still in progress, at least report on preliminary research results. And then finally, you're going to end with, here's the significance of these findings or this research project. All right, let's take a look at some examples. I have 3 exemplars that we're going to look at today. 1 applied, 1 creative, and 1 analytical. I'm going to pause the recording here to give you a chance to read this abstract. Okay, so the first thing I do is I always look for the research problem, and you'll see that it has language like our goal is to design a product or our research investigates. Now, according to the abstract components, anything before the research problem will be context or the purpose. And we can tell that this is about just medical workers in general. We have surgeons, they stand, they have poor posture, it results in muscle fatigue. All right, after the research problem, we will have some methods. So in this particular case, this student conducted in-depth user research by interviewing 8 surgeons. About what? Their needs regarding posture. Then we have a clear findings section. Why? Because it says right here, our findings show. Please use that language in your abstract. My findings show, or the results show. At the end, this person wraps up with, we hope that this product will eventually impact X, Y, and Z, the significance of the research. Bam. Let's do another example. Please pause the recording so you can read the abstract. All right, so this is an example of a creative project. So I always look for the research problem first. I study the significance of floral symbolism in Chinese textile arts and crafts. Okay, so I have an idea of what this person's going to do. Next, everything before that research problem should be context. So she indicates that there's symbolic imagery that's ingrained in Chinese culture, etc. I look at the methods. So her methods are a literature review and a visual analysis to design a fashion collection. Great. Now notice how she has one sentence here that has both research problem and methods all in the same sentence. I think that this is fine. I think it's a really nice way to keep your sentences cohesive and to not let your abstract feel so choppy. Next, she has her findings or conclusions, and really this is what her analysis, this is what she rendered or what she created to then explore floral symbolism. And then finally, the significance of her project. And again, please use this terminology. You can end your abstract with the significance of my project. Let's look at another example that's good. Please pause the recording here to read the abstract. All right, so this one's pretty straightforward. So I actually started with the first sentence. And the first sentence is very generally that women who are pregnant are exposed to viral bacterial infections. Then we can have neurodevelopmental disorders. Okay, very generally. Now, specifically, this student, Sarah Adams, wants to investigate the connection between maternal cytokine response and alterations in offspring neurodevelopment. Great. So we have a goal, we have a target. Well, how is she going to do that? She has a lot of methods. I want to draw your attention to a few things. Number one, she has abbreviations here, but she defines the abbreviations beforehand, which is really helpful. Next, she illustrates or she defines what doses of low molecular weight would be right here and what high molecular weight would be. She talks about how long things are performed. 4 hours later, we have these levels of serum cytokines. And then finally, those are determined using immunoassays. Great. These are all methods on what she did to collect data and to analyze the data in order to answer the question. Now, she has a one sentence for the findings. I would prefer if she would say the findings show that cytokines act as cellular signals, etc. But here's a different way of how to talk about the significance of the research. You can open with studying blank will further our understanding of blank. That's a really great way to wrap up your abstract. All right, let's look at 2 examples that are not great examples, and we'll talk about why. Pause the recording to read over this abstract. Please note that these are pseudonyms. Okay, I always like to start with the research problem. This study focuses on, okay? That means that anything before it should be context, orientating the reader's minds. After our research problem, we always have methods. Now you can see in comparison that these methods are not as precise as the methods before in the previous abstract. So that's something that the student would need to work on. Next, we have findings and conclusions, but if you read closely, this student was taking juniper essential oil and comparing it to commercial insect repellent. But that wasn't articulated in the research problem. So we have a disconnect here. So they're reporting findings that really don't make sense in the context of what has already been laid out. Now, the last sentence should be some kind of significance of the research in general, but it actually contradicts what this student reported because they end with essential oil also has insect repellent potential. Okay, but that wasn't really explained in the findings. Okay, let's do another example. Please pause the recording so you can read the abstract. Again, these are pseudonyms. All right, so I look for that keyword investigates or focuses or my study is blank. All right. Then I know that everything before the research problem should be context. However, we have this sentence that snuck in here after the research problem, which should be methods. It's still context. And actually, if this person did preliminary research, which then motivates their research, then this sentence should be directly before their research problem. So here's another, this is an example of having your pieces not be in the correct order and that you're having duplicate pieces, that it's not cohesive because the reader is expecting certain pieces of information. Next, we have the methods. Okay, what is this person doing? Well, interviewing administrative officials and plastic waste industry professionals. Great. For what reason? We're tracing plastic recycling. Fine. Now, this is the only sentence that would indicate any type of findings or conclusions. And it says implications of this research are further discussed. Now, that doesn't tell us anything. It sounds like this person has not even conducted any research at all. So really they have context and they have a research problem, but they haven't yet collected data and they haven't analyzed the data. This is not recommended. That you should at least have something to report when you're writing your abstract. Finally, this is a nice way of discussing or indicating significance of the research, that this research will actually be made available to the university community to inform policy. Excellent. All right, so let's go over the 4 C's of abstract writing. It needs to be complete. All of the examples, the good examples I showed you, have all the major parts of the project, and they need to be in that order. It's concise. You saw how some of these components only have 1 sentence. Completely fine. It's definitely clear. It's well organized. If you stick with that order, it's definitely readable, and there's not too much jargon, or at least if there's jargon, it's written in a way where if you didn't understand the jargon, you could at least understand what that researcher was doing. Finally, it's cohesive. And I showed you that example of blending 2 components into 1 sentence. All right, so you're probably thinking, how do I get started? Okay, here's what I recommend. This is the list of the components. At this point, you should pause the recording and write down 1 sentence for each of these components. Because at bare minimum, that's your skeleton. You should have at least 1 sentence for each of these. What you're going to do is once you have your 5 sentences or your skeleton, you're going to go back and you're going to read it all together as 1 cohesive piece and look and see where you need to expand and add more information. You might be thinking, oh my goodness, who can help me expand my abstract? Yes, because this is also the hardest part. Remember, this research is very close to you. So you're going to have blind spots compared to people who are not familiar with the research. So I can help you. You can make an appointment with me via iAdvise. Your capstone supervisor can also help you. We have the Writing Center on campus, which is one of the best writing centers in Chicago. People who are in your major or are in your lab. And then finally, your friends are great because this abstract needs to be able to be read by lay people and understood as well as experts. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will see you later.